Gábor, hi again. Um,
Well,
you're the part of the research teams of the Alliance for EU project, which is financially supported by the Visegrad Foundation and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea. The project seeks to engage in analysis and advocacy initiatives aiming at depolarizing the intercultural relations between North Macedonia and Bulgaria in order to prevent the pending possibility of another stalemate of the EU enlargement process. My first question will be, can you introduce to us the research subject of your research?
well, that's quite simple and a bit complicated because my research subject entails the Visegrad four countries, and my aim is to reveal something about how attempts of reconciling national histories somehow diffused tensions between countries, but also societies. It's simple in a sense because today there is not much conflict between three of these countries, neither the Czech, Slovak, or the Czech-Pole or the Slovak-Polish relations are conflictual, although historically there were tensions between these societies and countries. It's Hungary that is, so to say, the basket case with its complicated history and the so-called Trianon trauma that leads to recriminations vis-a-vis both the Czech society and especially regarding Slovaks, and also with other neighbors of Hungary, like Romania mostly, related to the territories that at the end of the First World War were annexed to these countries. That time it was Czechoslovakia and Romania, and not the independent Slovakia. So national history of Hungary is especially full with certain narrative tropes that either relate this history as a kind of tacit or open conflict between nations, or at least uses evaluation of the relations between Hungary and its neighbors that is negative and could lead to that kind of conflictual assumptions of the relations between Hungary and its neighbors. Since the change of regime, there were several attempts to use history, to use new historical narratives to diffuse this conflict, like mostly in the Hungarian-Slovak relations, where the Hungarian and the Slovak government actually initiated the preparation of a common history textbook, which was failed at one point, but still lasted for years, and therefore it's a great source of experience, not to speak of the real social relations that get much, much better since the early 90s and in today. So it's really interesting to look at these attempts, how governments, civil society actors, historians, and even the public handled these historical questions, what kind of interesting attempts were made that helped laymen, mostly society, to somehow deal with those conflictual issues within history, and how it helped the emergence of a more relaxed relationship with all of the neighbors of Hungary, despite the politically very problematic position of the Hungarian government, for example, within the context of the Russian aggression against Ukraine. So this is what I will do, mostly focusing on the Hungarian case, but also mentioning why, for example, there was no real tension between the Czech Republic and Slovakia after the country was dismembered.
Thank you. I can see the answer of my second question in your resume, but I must ask how this research subject will contribute to the whole idea of reconciliation and depolarization of the relationship between North Macedonia and Bulgaria, if you can.
Oh, yes, I think in a sense it's quite obvious, as you mentioned. mostly because history is one of the topics that is on the surface of this conflict between Bulgaria and North Macedonia. It is either the reason or at least a pretext for posing demands or setting demands that are hard to fulfill for especially for North Macedonia, and therefore it could be a good example to use to look at these cases and to use not only in terms of what kind of historical narratives could emerge from that kind of reconciliation attempt, but also how non-political actors and non-professionals who are not within the profession of historiography and historical writing can contribute, even can be the avant-garde of those kind of attempts. Not at the large scale, at the national scale, but with small-scale local initiatives. It also can be telling of what kind of social contexts, environments would facilitate the appearance of such initiatives, and also what could be the hindrances. So what is to focus on in terms of overcoming the resistance, and how to use means that are not necessarily as political to meet that kind of political resistance that is the experience of such reconciliations is very hard to overcome because of the symbolic stakes of the process.
Thank you, Gábor, for this, and we will wait for your research at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.